Hi, everyone. This is Danielle. We Are You Listening? Back to From the Table, our bargaining series, because we are finally back to bargaining after over 65 days away from the table over some of the terms of how we were bargaining. We have finally gotten back into the room. And so we have a number of members today with us. Can you introduce yourselves?
I'll go first as I'm not muted. I'm Paul O'Keefe. I'm a geography faculty, non-tenure track, Livingston, New Brunswick, and also a member of the union's executive council.
I'm Owen Abinovich. I'm a graduate student steering committee member and on the executive council.
I'm Strath. I'm also on the graduate steering committee and on the executive council. I'm in Rutgers, New Brunswick.
Great. Thank you so much. Paul actually has already written the update for the week that's on our website. So if you have any questions about anything we're talking about, as long as you're not driving in your car, please go take a look at those, because all of the articles that we're going to be talking about will be linked there as well, so you can see them in more detail. And he wrote some really great update notes for us. So before we get going on the two articles that were brought into this week, which were 4 and 9, can we talk just a little bit briefly about what it was like to be back in bargaining after having been away for so long?
This was great. First of all, it's exciting to make some progress. And second, it was good to see how things are going to work moving forward. It was not very different than previous bargaining. I think our team did a tremendous job on pushing forward on specific things.
So just to clarify, this was our first small session, which one of the conditions, like just for folks who might not be familiar, of us getting back to bargaining was a sort of alternating plan of some weeks we have a smaller session, and then we have much more open sessions that will have up to 75 people present. Or was it about 18 people that were present for this one?
It was 18, and one of the things I did find frustrating was the fact that with keeping it at 18, which we had to fight for because they wanted 12, we had to actually pick and choose who of the people who were very relevant would be there. Some of the people who were going to talk about the articles were maybe not going to be able to be there, so that people from different campuses could be present.
Right, because that 18 includes our members, people who are on committees drafting articles. It also includes our staff. But it's good to hear that. I mean, it's encouraging to know that we're at that capacity that we pushed, that there's no concern of like not enough people attending. There's a lot of commitment and a lot of interest of people being present to be in that conversation. And I really appreciate what you all are doing here today, which is helping us maintain a lot of transparency, even on smaller sessions. So thank you for that.
So right now the sessions are continuing on Zoom. So like you mentioned, that we're switching between small sessions where only 18 people are around and big sessions. And we're trying to get as many people in the room so that they can see and be involved in this process. But the sessions are continuing on Zoom right now, which is good for us because it makes it possible for members to attend these sessions. We actually had one member who was in the lab working away at the microscope while he was also trying to be present and take notes and help out with any other strategies or anything that might be needed during the session as well.
One thing to think about is how important the idea of open bargaining has been to a lot of members, to getting them enthused in the bargaining process and more knowledgeable. But if it did come up against a moment, it's this question of who benefits from these delay tactics. And on our side, there's almost no benefit from negotiations not continuing. So, for me, just to set the scene, I was delighted not just to attend, but to know that bargaining, for better or worse, had not just resumed, but resumed on a schedule that included at least a big chunk of relatively open bargaining. So
thank you all so much for framing that. So I guess the next thing to just talk about would be if you guys could give us a quick rundown on some of the articles that were brought in. So like we said, it was 4 and 9. And I know that 9 is pretty dense grievance language. And so it might not be something we can completely hash out here. I wish we had BJ with us. She did a great episode for us on grievance bargaining. But we can definitely, we'll do our best and talk about it as much as we can. And also, like I said, it'll be linked on our website so people can take a look at it in greater detail. But if you guys could give us a quick rundown on what those two articles really were asking, that would be helpful.
Yeah. So we actually, both of these articles go pretty well together because they're coming up about like harassment and then how can we protect our members when they have been harassed and what the procedure looks like for grievance. So the two articles that again came up were Article 4 and Article 9. Article 4 has a lot of anti-harassment language where we are asking for the inclusion of some new protected categories. So the great thing about being in New Jersey is that New Jersey labor laws historically have just been very progressive in terms of providing protection to workers. At the bargaining table, we were actually talking a little bit about historically, unions had bargained for workers to be protected against anti-LGBT discrimination and trans discrimination as well, to protect workers from that. So in that same vein, we are asking for a couple of new categories like caste, visa status, citizenship status, HIV antibody status. And that was presented in Article 4. I don't know if someone else wants to take Article 9 or if I should just continue with Article 9 as well.
I mean, that was my take. Article 9 bridged very closely. It's almost like the process and the methods by which the grievances are understood and acted upon, and the rights of the is it a complainant or a grievant? We might talk about that more, but I learned a lot about grievance procedures, and it was amazing to see our grievance team and our legal team, the skill they have in a world that I have no idea about.
Article 4 is asking for expanded protection for our workers. And then Article 9 is talking about the grievance procedure. So right now, the Office of Employment Equity, OEE, deals with these types of procedures. And so in Article 9, they are talking about the mediation procedure when grievances are brought up, we're asking for an extended amount of time when folks can bring up complaints related to Title 9. And then also how many arbitrators and mediators are going to be present during these grievance procedures. So as a union, we have wine garden rights where if any grievance procedure does start, you are allowed to have a union member with you while you are going through a complaint procedure. But this is also just asking, in Article 9, we're just asking for extended protections in terms of the time when you can file a complaint, transparency in terms of what the judgment was, so that the person who brought up the complaint can see what the judgment on it was. And then just I think how the mediation process takes place. That's all that Article 9 is covering. I hope I did BJ justice by explaining all of this.
Jay will be pleased.
Was really good, yeah, and much better than my attempts. So thanks.
I was really well done. Also, I will say that one of the biggest point that was the sticking point was the demand that the OEE report be available, because right now it is not available. And that was where one of the biggest back and forth was about this.
So what that meant practically for us as members is that we would have the right to see the results of any investigation that we had made on whatever broad basis we'd claimed a grievance or made a complaint. And it's interesting to learn because, this is how our rights are enforced. And it's like the sausage factory. It's not always good to see it being produced in real time, but we enjoy the benefits.
I will just, add one thing on that, which is basically the way things stand right now is you make a complaint, and the way this works, OEE makes the investigation, make their determination, and it's a black box. You don't get, and the union don't get to see what was the determinations. The university says, complain to us. Someone from the university, from management, will investigate, make a determination, and we'll tell you yes or no, but we won't show you the investigation. And the demand was, no, you have to show us. If you want OEE to continue to do these investigations and you want us to be okay with it, we get to see it once you've made a determination.
Mhm.
And we don't have to change and press a formal complaint just to have a grievance and have someone make a determination and investigation on that. That's the big demand here. And that's what we're fighting for, is that we have actual view of what happened with our grievance.
I think that's an important point. And it's really one of the things we talk about a lot on this podcast is if it isn't in your contract, you can't do anything about it, right? So, like, the importance of contract demands, the importance of all of this back and forth that we're doing right now as part of bargaining is being able to produce a contract that allows us tools for being able to respond in the moment. Because without this, we have no procedure other than to attempt to do something on an individual level in a legal capacity. So these things that are more about process, more about how we do how we see the thing, whether we see it, this is really critical to what people's life experiences ends up being. It's not as easy to wrap our heads around sometimes when we're talking about procedural stuff, but this is really critical business.
And that for me was why, more than anything, it was just sad to see management weaponize the idea of grievance culture. I mean, really from the top down, in a way that just didn't capture what actually are the university community's members' real grievances, like what stops them getting the most they can and getting the most they deserve from their part of this community. So just adding that.
Yeah, the way that they use it to mean a culture of complaining as opposed to what grievance actually is. A grievance comes up when a contract has been violated. So that brings us into, I think, probably the most important part of all of these updates, which is, so we brought our demands, and what was it that happened at the table? How did they respond to them?
So for Article 4, they kind of leaned back, management kind of leaned back into which categories are legally protected already. And that because these categories that we are now suggesting don't have legal protection, that they don't want to make any changes beyond that. And so we countered back saying that, well, in many cases, as I was saying earlier, that even with many LGBTQ laws, laws were behind what unions had negotiated in terms of protections. So asking for protection for these new categories goes again with what has happened in the past, where unions have historically asked for protection for not just workers, but just people well before laws have caught up. So that was the argument that we were making. And I think where we left off with Article 4 is that the management is going to look at that counter and possibly seemed a little bit hopeful and in terms of the arguments that we had presented. And we talked a little bit about some shared definitions, and I think we're going to be waiting for their response.
That, I think, our team did a phenomenal job of introducing the whole point here, which is, if the law already protects you, we don't need to protect beyond it. But we have demonstrated very clearly, very, very clearly, that there are these categories that are being discriminated against. And the whole point of adding this to the contract is to add protection for things that aren't there. And that's how things progress, and this how things secure people within our community. If management really want to present themselves as the university, then they need to think about the entire university. We are the university. We are the people of the university, the students, the faculty, the staff, everybody that works here, everybody that engages with the university. And for management to try, and to me, that was just so frustrating to watch them so callously disregard the disenfranchisement of members of the university community, and the fact that some are at risk because of certain things, that to me was so frustrating on a personal level.
I'd just like to add 2 points very quickly. The first is, I think Nusrat's perhaps underselling her role in bargaining, which I'd just like to mention was incredibly not just powerful testimony, but it was packed with evidence. And it was very clear that not just private sector universities, but public flagship university systems across this country are working towards, being a step ahead of what is the law. And I think that really speaks to the question about what a flagship university wants to be. We've seen from the governor down a decision to invest in athletics facilities, and the university is committed to making the athletics side flagship. I mean, that's the ultimate logic, that it's going to generate enough that it's known across the country. But what would it mean to be a flagship leader? And management essentially admitted they rely on the law and nothing much more. And if we want to be a flagship in our whole, then you have to think about, not what the law says you must do, but what the law doesn't cover. And again, it was a really interesting discussion, and not just on technical levels. But thanks again to Nusrat, and I just think it should be emphasized that she brought the union's A game to the table.
Actually, can I just add one thing, that there was actually another person who was also supposed to be there. This goes back to what we were talking about how we were so limited in the number of people that we were allowed to bring as well, and how it's not just me, it impacts so many other people too, right? And that, like, being able to have our union members be present in the room to make our case is so important to us. And we're for us, we're trying to operate from for both Article 4 and for Article 9, we're trying to operate from a place of transparency for our members and for our university community, which I think it became evident to all of us in the room that management is not necessarily operating out of that principle, and that part is what is disappointing to see. That if you want to build a community that's inclusive and open and diverse and welcoming to all, you want to make it so that you can have these conversations openly and have these decisions made openly, and have the logic behind it be transparent. So I think that's what it comes down to for all of our bargaining.
Yeah. It's the difference between wanting to build an actual community that embraces diversity, that allows for people to flourish in the completeness of who they are, versus wanting to build a brand that appears to do those things, but functionally is there to support the corporation behind the brand.
I think that from attending these meetings, that's one of the starkest things that came to the forefront of my awareness, is the huge difference between what the university management states and then the way that management dealing with the university members in action translates to. That their actions do not meet those lofty mission statements and all those beautiful speeches that we hear. When you sit at the table and you're being told that based on little definitions or not wanting to expand beyond the bare minimum of what they absolutely have to afford you, that your rights are not going to be protected, and that people are not going to be protected so that they can participate safely and completely in the university community and be members of the community and be looked after, then there is a big disconnect here.
Thanks. Yeah, that's really helpful. I guess it's sort of now it's kind of like that tricky question of like, what do we do next? Because it's kind of like, it's hard to say because they don't officially counter, they just sort of don't respond, or they kind of say, well, we don't really like that, we think it should be like this, but it's not an official counter. So to as much as we're able to talk about it here for folks, can you guys tell us what you think that like our next steps are around this, around these two issues?
So I think right now we are going to be waiting for management to give their counters to the arguments that we presented. And we have pretty much presented our logic behind our articles to them. So that's the next step. And then the ongoing next step is to continue bargaining. We actually went to the table hoping to present, I think we were also expecting to present Article 31033 as well, but we just ran out of time. So for us, I think the next step is to continue these bargaining sessions and to continue being at the table, because at this point we have presented all our articles, we have received some counters, but we are now over 100 days without contract. And for us, it is important that we get a contract back again so that our workers can continue to their work.
We were at 124 when we finally got back to the table. Our first day, it's 124 days out of contract. Our next bargaining session will be on November 8th, and that we will be focusing a lot on some of our critical grad issues, whether that's our cost of living increase, the potential of COVID protections going forward for folks who have had their research and their time interrupted, and a number of other important issues for grads, the inclusion of fellows in the union who are currently separated from TAGAs, and a number of other issues. And there's an opportunity to sign up for that if you haven't been able to yet. We would love to have you there. And then I think we also have some other opportunities for people to get involved beyond bargaining, if you wanted to talk about those, Nusra.
All right. So another exciting thing that many of our members have been working on is Strike School, where we have two sessions, two 1.5-hour sessions over Zoom on how our union is structured and how we organize. And the idea of this is to come out being a better organizer. And there are multiple sessions on Zoom, and it's going for the rest of November, and folks can sign up for it. You can either go on our various social media accounts to find the sign up link, or you can also go on our website to also find the sign up link. I think, Paul, you had attended some of the sessions.
Yes, this round I've been to the first session on the ground in, and it's great. It's active, kind of building a community that I'm delighted to be a part of. I still meet people in our union, in our unit. There's been attendees from other units across the campus, but it's a really and it really links as well. One of the main themes of the brilliant Freedom School this week, which is on YouTube. For all these very, very smart academic arguments and powerful theories, I think Professor Taiwo made the point that the most fundamental important things he learned about the world were the importance of hard work and organizing, and just grounded in daily life and trying to build a collective future, and going back to the future of the negotiations, the future of the bargaining. It's all of this is connected, and again, the more engagement I have, the more connections there are, even if I still hate the idea of a phone bank. But other things I'm really trying to be much better at. But phone.
I just wanted to maybe build a little off of what you both have said too, which is just to say it is to make you a better organizer, but also you don't need to know that you're an organizer before you come. People should come just because they want to learn more about the union too, because I think sometimes it can feel, I know in my early days of trying to get involved, I was really intimidated by how much people seemed to know about organizing. And so I just want folks to feel comfortable to come just because they have questions. It's a great opportunity to do that, even if you don't necessarily understand yourself to have already ever been part of this kind of a process before.
Yeah, it's not about you must go on the picket line next week. And I'm one of those people, I think, who's even the title Strike School, you at least have a double take. Is that, but I'd really encourage everyone, because the first session especially, it's a really good rundown of how, democratically across our union, we've sought out our members' demands. They've coalesced into a set of bargaining demands, and we're moving forwards. And again, just like the connections between Article 4 and Article 9, it's about the ideas of what we're trying to build, but it's also, you know, the pathways, the methods, and with organizing, that's people, and it's organizing. And you know, I'm looking forward to the second session. So I encourage anyone to join again, and I might even do another first session because it's just fun. It's orange.
I'll just say, for the reason to go to all of these, to attend the sessions, you know, we've talked a little bit about that feeling of a little bit overwhelmed when you walk in. I started on this. We all can relate to that. But that's the point. It's kind of like an immersion language learning. It's you get in there and you learn it, and everybody's very welcoming to questions. And it's just really illuminating to just see how those little things matter to you and how they affect you, and to start to see the way that this system works and the way that we're trying to improve it. And to me, another pitch that I always have is, if you want something specific, if you have a need to change it, you have to come to the conversation.
It's a great point, Oren. I think many of us in academia have suffered from imposter syndrome one way or another. In our careers, I certainly have felt in places I didn't belong. And I think in the union, it's just more of a close relationship between, you just do stuff and you meet people, and then you realize that is the organizing. That's half the battle. And going back to strike school, that's what we're trying to do. This is not a static situation, and things are in motion, bargaining is happening, and we will find a resolution, but we just have to organize, and the better we do that, the better the final settlement's likely to be.
Excellent. That's a great point, I think, for us to end on. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time.